has mentioned that our programs, we work in the agriculture, we work on water, local participation, transforming lives, and our cross-cutting themes with the foundation is climate change as well as women's empowerment, because it is extremely, we don't have a particular program carved out for climate change or for women's empowerment, but everything that we do in our programs impact we make sure the climate is taken into the equation as well as women's empowerment. So I'll go a little bit more in detail about and the foundation will be finishing 25 years next year. So if you are in India, please join us for the celebration. I'll let you know when that is. Our outreach, Sehgal Foundation, as I said, we started with a handful of villages. We were started with 4 villages when we started, just to get to know what is needed to be done, and working with the communities, and we learned quite a bit from them. Our approach at the very beginning, actually, our approach was very conference room, very glorified approach, top-down approach, what it's called, that we are going to do this and we are going to do this, and we went in very ambitious goals into the villages. When we got to the villages and started talking to the communities, we learned very quickly that those are very ambitious goals are only for the conference rooms and boardrooms and all, but reality is completely different. Working with the communities is totally, their needs and their understanding their needs is very, very different than what we perceive was sitting in somewhere else. So we learned a lot from the community, and we actually changed our approach, having top down, we're going into a bottom up, learning from the communities, understanding what their needs are, and try to help them in that particular aspect. As I said, we started 25 years ago with a handful of villages, and today our outreach is almost 2,300 villages in India. We represent in 12 states today. We're working in 12 states and working with approximately about 4.5 million people with different programs in and out. But in India, you know, when the population is 1.2 billion, 1.3 billion, it's still a very, very small portion. But the thing is that our emphasis has been to develop models and how we can share those models, and I'll share a lot more information on this as we proceed. How do we share those models with others so they can also take up the work that we want to do? The bottom line for any nonprofit is how do we positively impact the lives of the people, not to have any proprietary information, but having a more general information. So we can kind of consider ourselves as an open source kind of organization where people can come and teach us how we need to improve ourselves, as well as how we can share the knowledge and information with others as we go. Our team in India is almost 325 people strong, because so we are such a huge spread throughout India. The team consists of researchers and economists. As I mentioned, our research team is very much a lot of them are economists in that area. There are subject matter specialists for water management, for agriculture, for schools, for community mobilization. These are for subject matter specialists, and of course, field level management teams that are throughout the country. We are a hands-on organization. We do it ourselves. And we don't outsource a lot of the work, rural development work to others, because we are quality conscious and we are impact conscious in the community, because we want to make sure those things happen as we work in the communities. One of the key things that we took on was, sorry, if I'm going to take a sip of water here. We said if you want to make an impact in rural India, if you, I don't know how many of you have been to India. Oh, a lot of people. How many of us been to the villages in India? Fact, excellent. So you know for a fact that there's in India, the farm size of the farmer, or the only source of income in reality, is that one piece of land, and which is very small. It's not like in the US or Midwest, thousands and thousands of acres the farmers have. Farmers are, we're talking about 2 acre, 3 acre, 2.5 acre. Some of the real small farmers, especially the women, are 0.5 acre, type of farmers, and how do you impact the lives of those people? We said if we want to make work on poverty reduction or poverty elimination, is we have to, in India, 60% of our population, one way or the other, works in the agriculture area. We know 40% of our population resides in the rural communities. Sachin, please correct me if these figures are wrong, but approximately that's how. So when we talk about 1.3 billion people, you can see there's a lot of people who depend on agriculture in one way or the other. So we said we need to make an impact at the grassroots level with the farmer. When we started working with the farming communities in India, we realized that most of the farmers are very much concerned or very much looking after the above the soil solution. Now, some of you must be agriculture specialists here. They work very well making sure the plants stand, making sure the fertilizers and the insecticides and all those things. But many of the farmers, we realize, are not concerned with the below the soil solutions. Below the soil, we're talking about taking care of the soil health. This is extremely, extremely important for the farmers, because just like our bodies, if we don't get proper nutrients, don't get proper vitamins, we are not going to be very healthy. So we want to make sure farmer understands soil health. We want to make sure the farmer understands good seed, because many of the farmers end up investing a lot in their soils and in their farms, but they don't buy the proper seed. So we want to make sure the farmer actually invests in purchasing proper seeds. Then we also make sure they take care of the water, because water is extremely important for the proper crop production in the communities. So these are some of the basic things that we went in setting up. We have a tremendous amount of farming community, and so our methodology of taking sustainable agriculture practices to the farmer is to show them on their plots, half an acre or 1 acre, of how our interventions are done and how their regular interventions are done. So they can see the difference side by side, that how agriculture makes a difference, how our interventions can make a difference. And then we do a lot of demonstrations, bringing in people from all the farming community from surrounding areas to show them how these practices can be implemented in the farm, in the agriculture. So some of the key things, as I mentioned, promoting sustainable agriculture practices, climate smart agriculture, because climate, as you know, is changing, and we all know it's changing, and it impacts agriculture quite a bit, because some places there rain, some places is drought. Especially now with India depending on quite a bit on the monsoon. The monsoons are becoming more and more erratic, and it is impacting the farming community in a big way. So we want to make sure the farmer understand the drought crops versus non-drought crops, particularly in that particular aspect. And then promoting farm mechanism. Most of the farming in the community is manual. So there's hardly any mechanism is being utilized. So we are bringing mechanization to the farmers in a smaller scale. To store one of these John Deere tractors, that you need a whole farm by itself. So how you can bring smaller mechanization, appropriate technologies to the farmer, so they are able to do the cropping practices. Farmer producer organizations are becoming big in India right now. These are organizations where the farmers bring back. The cooperatives are a little bit different. It's not a co-op type of thing, but it's a farmer producer organization. But once they make the produce, they can come together to make a sale and to sell it, to bring it to the market in that particular aspect. So we work quite a bit on farmer producer organization. One of the key things there is the sustainability of the farmer producer organization is big in question. So our focus has been, how do we make these, because as long as the organizations are with the farmer producer organizations, they sustain pretty well. But as soon as they walk away, they fail pretty much. So how do you revitalize these farmer producer organizations, and how do you make sure they remain sustainable? So as you walk away from these, they can be more sustainable for the future. and entrepreneurship and allied activities for diversifying income with the farmers. So see, these are some of the key things that we work with the farmers. We feel that as bringing quite an impact. I'll talk about the impact of a little later on. How these interventions have brought impact to the community, because that is most concerning for us. How we don't want to be just continue to work on something if those interventions are not going to bring an impact to the communities. Water is extremely important for agriculture, right? If there's no water, there's no agriculture. We know that very well. So we want to make sure we work on agriculture. And before on the agriculture, I do want to mention, we do focus quite a bit on women farmers, making sure they have the proper resources, they have the proper knowledge to do the proper. Quite a few women, farmer or women in the villages, and so we want to make sure they get and many times they don't get the knowledge and the information, timely information. So we go extensively work with the women farmers to make sure that they understand the sustainable practices. Water management, as I said, extremely important for agriculture, and we work extensively with the farmers on drip irrigation, on sprinkler irrigation, farm ponds to create sustainable, because many times when the farmers, they go out and buy the water for their agricultural practices, whereas when the rains come, because as you know, monsoon season is only so much, and many of the farmers during the rainy season they will have the crop, but then the dry season they leave their farms fallow. So you have this issue where in an environment like India, a farmer can do 3 crops a year, and only thing holding them back is availability of water. So you want to make sure there's a good water availability for the farmers, they can continue the farming for the year. Sorry, too dry. As I said, pardon? Water, of course, is very important. So we do work on, you see in this picture here is check dams. We build a lot of check dams. We do a lot of study on looking at the terrains of the area, bringing in putting in structures where they can have the most impact in that particular aspect. Harvesting waters and surface water and water resources. I think that's a huge project for our team. As I said, we have subject matter specialists, we have hydrologists, we have water management specialists who really study how this needs to be brought to the communities. They study the topography, they study how the water flow in the areas are. And then, of course, we do we have a program we want to harvest water wherever it drops. Because, again, going back to the women, because in the household level, women are held responsible or kept responsible for the water, for the children, for the household. So they many times have to walk quite a bit to go get the water for the day. So how do you bring water closer to the communities so their time is saved in that particular aspect? So we do rainwater harvesting at house level. We promote rainwater harvesting at house level. Simple, it's not a rocket science. It's just basically many times you see how do you create a small well, small pit or something like that, so the water that falls in the roofs area gets stored. Goes for groundwater recharge, or if they have a storage facility, they can store it as well. Similarly, at the community level, we make sure the water diverts in the community to a well or to an open source, so it does not run off from the villages. And as you see in the larger in the community side, we set up these type of check dams to the water. So it's a 3-tier. We save water everywhere the water falls. We want to divert it to the ground and not have it run out of the villages, so that the rest of the year they don't have the water. So with this, we have noticed the cropping patterns have changed, and there's water availability, especially in the schools. I'll talk about schools quite a bit. That a little later on is that the schools don't have water and schools don't have a toilet because there's no water. So we also work on rainwater harvesting in the schools. So there's a plenty of water for the schools, the kids remain in the schools. And building the capacity is very important. It's not just storing the water, and it's also making sure that people understand the importance of water. Many times it's taken for granted, right? I mean, they say, oh, it's water, doesn't matter, right? But they realize the need of it when they don't have it. So we create a lot of capacity, we do a lot of capacity building with the communities on saving the water in that particular aspect. If it's getting boring, please tell me. I can tell some jokes in between. So please, if anybody, I know Sarah mentioned hold your questions till the end, but if you do have some questions or something, please raise your hand. And you see on the charts on the presentations, we also continue to mention what type of sustainable development goals are addressed by each one of our programs. I think that I can't emphasize more on this particular aspect. It is extremely, extremely important for us that we make sure that we take women's empowerment in every one of our programs. We empower the farmers. I talked about that quite a bit. We partner with the farmer producer organizations, which are led by women, and we work on girls' education, especially on the WASH perspective, water hygiene and sanitation perspective, and capacity building on women. We actually set up women leadership schools in the villages. Now, these women leadership schools are a lot of empowering the women on various programs that the government has available for the villages. It's just basically empowerment the women to knowledge. Their knowledge increases as to if they have a need for a particular source, where they can go and get those sources. So that's one of our main program. Again, quite a few of sustainable development goals are met in this particular aspect. Now, when we talk about women empowerment, we can't talk about women empowerment. Many times we feel it starts at the adolescent and the adult age, but actually women empowerment really starts at a very, very young, at the beginning. We need to address that particular aspect. When we saw in the villages, the very young girls, and they are sent to government schools. They are not sent to private schools. We have realized, our research shows that anytime a family has a little bit of money, they will send the boy to the private school where every facility is available. Girls end up in some of these schools which are extremely, extremely run down. As I mentioned earlier, these schools don't have water. They don't have toilet facility, especially for the girls. And so how do you expect these girls to be empowered when they have such a poor beginning? So we started this program called Transform Lives One School at a Time 5 years ago, even though, as I said, our main programs on agriculture and water, but we started this program, Transform Lives One School at a Time, basically to address the girl-child education aspect of it. So these schools are, as I said, the schools in generally, they're extremely run down. There's no boundary walls. There's no toilets. And then there's a huge problem with the rural and urban digital divide for these children, because in the rural schools, there's no access to digital literacy. So that's girls can get a good education in the school, but if they don't understand the computer, they don't have the knowledge of the computer, they don't understand any of that, how they can compete with the kids who are in the urban or the private schools. So we said we need to emphasize quite a bit on digital literacy and the life skills education with the girls in the schools. So we implement what we call digital libraries in the school. These libraries have about 12 computers, they're solar driven, and they're completely independent. They have internet access. So the children will have access to digital literacy. So that's the key important aspect of our Transform Lives One School at a Time program. I think the sustainability, one of the things indirectly I've been talking about is sustainability, because without empowerment, the sustainability does not come. So we could put train what they call the school management committees in these schools. They are formal committees, just like a board in the US, school boards. There are school management committees. We train them actually how to run these schools effectively as we phase out of these areas. Any questions? We're going to get into a little bit more technical part of my conversation, so I'm kind of trying to defer it. So, local participation, sustainability. I just spoke about that, because the key for us is not just to go and do it. Key for us to teach them how to do it, teach them how to access facility, how to make sure that it's, because if we go and do it and walk away, we can't talk about sustainability, because many times the villagers say, oh, they came and built it and they left. So our philosophy is what they say, you build it, they'll come. So quote unquote. So we said we want to create sustainability through empowerment. So we put quite a bit of emphasis on empowering the communities, empowering the people, on making sure what we do remains sustainable after we phase out of the villages. So participation is extremely important. Every program that we work with farmers, with water, with schools, we make sure the community participates one way or the other. Without participation, we don't even bother going into those communities until they are ready. We have to make sure they are ready. Not we are ready with the technology, we are ready with the things, but they also have to be ready that they want that kind of change to be brought in the community. Furthering women leaderships for inclusive and equitable development, I think that's extremely important. Men generally go in and out of the villages, and then many times they don't take things seriously, but women do understand the development. They do understand what's good for them. They do understand what's good for their children. So we make sure that women are involved in these trainings that we do. Strengthening local institutions, I just mentioned, like the panchayats, school management committees, water groups, everybody, we make sure they're strengthened and make sure they participate in what we do. And promote digital technology. That's all become, without digital technology has made a lot of things simpler, and we make sure that people understand how they can access. These days, everybody has a cell phone, and how they can access various knowledge and information. And of course, maximizing our outreach and impact. This is how do you develop models? You develop various technologies. How do you promote it on a larger scale? How do you make sure that other organizations, other people, the institutions, the policymakers, how do they get access to that information? So we have a complete communications area that works on making sure there's quite a bit of dissemination through our website, through our annual reports, through our newsletters. We have a wonderful newsletter. It's called Connect, and anybody who would like to be on it, please let me know. I'll put your name on it. There's a lot of knowledge sharing goes on in that particular aspect. I talked quite a bit about the impact, and I'm going to talk more as I go further on this presentation. Our rural research and development put a lot of emphasis on studying what we do, what needs to be done, and making sure that those interventions, because anytime you're working in the villages, you're spending a lot of money, and a lot of human resources, and so we want to make sure that impact, we drive it by impact, and it's not driven by just doing for the sake of doing. So we want to make sure what we do is impact driven, and that's what our key responsibility. The key responsibility that goes with our rural research and development teams. Now comes the hard part for me, where I will go through. I will be looking through my slides a little bit, because this is we're going to talk a little bit about research and how do we bring impact to the communities. And as the Sehgal Foundation is able to deliver some of the sustainable programs across India, primarily because of participatory and inclusive approach to design and development of the projects. I mean, that's extremely important for us. How do we develop these projects and how do we study it? So basically, the first step we work on is getting the needs of the community. So I talked quite a bit about bottom-up approach. So this is where we are talking about bottom-up approach, because our research teams will actually go into the area and understand what do they need, what needs to be done. And that's studying the needs assessment. They do a complete needs assessment of the villages. After needs assessment, we do actually situation analysis to make sure that we have the resources to meet the needs of the community. So we're mapping, a lot of mapping between the identifying the projects and the key needs, components of that particular project that what we need to implement in villages. We go to community rapport, basically a baseline survey, because as I said, we at the end of the project, we want to know what impact we have to bring, what difference have we made in bringing a particular project to the community. So we do a complete baseline surveys, house to house survey, and there's a complete mechanism, and our research team works on that quite a bit in deploying that mechanism on doing the effective baseline survey and collecting of the information. As the project is being implemented, we continue to look at the baseline, look at how the project is improving, do another research, do another collection of data using various resources, and making sure we are in line with what we set the goal for those particular projects. So there's a implementation perspective. We continue to look at a lot of the information because there could be a mid-course change also. Because if the project is not meeting the needs and meeting what we tend to do, we can always make changes to the project and lead it in a different way if we need to make any changes, midterm changes. Then, of course, the end line, once the project is finished, then we look at how that project has come across, and presenting that particular study in various components. And before we phase out, we make sure that it's presented to the community as well, and what kind of. And then there is always a lot of learning as we work with different communities. India is a big country, and 12 states are huge areas. And so if we learn something from one area, how do we deploy in the other area? How we can make modifications to make sure our programs become more effective? And that goes back into the closes the loop into, again, having a better needs assessment and better projects for the future. That's the overall scenario for our research, how it works on it. Building connection, and because how does it matter if you've done tremendous programs and ultimate replicability? If you look at the ultimate replicability of the program, it is through the policy. Because if you cannot impact the policy, you can't really, government of India is the ultimate replicator, let's say. Their governments are not in India, but anywhere. Governments, but they need the information. They need the documentation from the grassroots to be able to, so they can implement or they can bring better policies for the more effective future in the community. So our research, quite a bit of documentation is created, and that documentation feeds back into various policy papers and the documentation. As I said, this is some of the key things we look at: transforming experience evidence from grassroots, generating knowledge in the forms of research papers, reports. This is a hands-on, actual from bottom line, front end, whatever you call it, white papers. And of course, we do collaborate with various academic and institutions around the world to learn, develop best practices. And of course, as I said, impacting policy is the main aspect of our research as we go through. Here are some of the glimpses of the research we have done over the years, and just giving you a little bit of background of how we carry out research using various tools and those aspects of it. In this particular slide, you can see that there's a the using various techniques and methods in an imperative aspect of data analysis as we undertake as part of the research studies. There's, as I said, there's various techniques are being used to understand, create different indices to create informative research practices in this. So you can see there's two different aspects here. We have looked at hygiene and sanitation using knowledge, attitude, and practices, and dodging those particular aspects. And different quartiles are displayed here in that particular aspect. And as I said, I have our research person online, but if we have any questions, we can always ask her more details on this. And the second graph on this is showing the impact of school enrollment, because this we talk about transform lives one school at a time. The ultimate goal is to keeping the children in school, keeping the enrollment increasing, and the retention of the kids in the school. So this second graph shows over the years what kind of impact that brings. This is through our various. Then also using different other types of tools to study, because some places we can study with the actual numbers, some places we have to see using tools such as the spatial septual thermal dynamics. Okay, you can read that, but what it says. But this is a very clear research over the time. As showing using geothermal and spatial tools to analyze some of our programs. In this particular one, we look at the vegetation area, how our interventions have been able to bring an increased vegetation in different acids. So this basically again goes back to increasing the groundwater and how it impacts in the communities. Impact of the check dams. We talked about check dams is basically urban structures which are created at a very strategic locations to make sure that the water slows down the flow of the water, so that more water percolates to the ground. And here's another imaging of change in the groundwater expanse due to the check dam. This is the check dam done in a village called Kohar, I believe is the name of the village. And that's where we have, and here you can see how the GIS map done in 2014, and how that was before the check dam was created, and how that has increased the water level, which shows blue, increased the water level as so the groundwater increased because of the so that again shows the impact that this particular intervention has enabled. Here we talk about the check dams impact, not just only in the groundwater, but on the cropping patterns of the farmers. These two structures, these two images actually shows the cropping of this particular area before the check dam was created. So you can see in this particular pearl millet and cotton are the two main crops in this particular aspect, and continuously you can see there's a decrease in both of the crops, where the fallow area has been increased because there's no water availability in the region. Whereas the same area, after the check dam was created, after the water availability was there with the farmers, you can see both of the crops, key crops, the area of planting area has increased over the years. So you can, although cotton is very water intensive crop, so this again goes back to the education. When the farmers have the water, they go to water intensive more because they get more money for that particular crop, which makes more sense because that's. But we also create knowledge about with the farmers to make sure the way they do farming, they do use water very judiciously and not wastefully. But a lot of these farmers use what they call the flood irrigation, which is very ineffective and very wasteful over the time. But the key thing, the key message in this particular research is the fact that our interventions are bringing impact through various projects, and how we study these impacts, how our research team studies the impacts. So the key conclusions in some of these studies that you see, key thing is the change in the groundwater level between 2014, 2015, and 2017, because of the recharge of the water, overexploitation of groundwater resources due to increase in the wheat and cotton. That's basically why the situation got there. And practice like flood irrigation, as I mentioned, that's very wasteful and ineffective. The water table declined within 2 kilometers of the radius of the village because of all these various, and reduce the climate-led seasonal migration from the villages. So these are some of the things that key conclusions from our research. We do work on quite a bit of collaborative research in the sense that we invite students and invite academicians from around the world to come and work with the Sehgal Foundation. Or they want to work 6 months, they want to work 3 months. So we invite these type of collaborations to come and work for us, work for the or spend time with the Sehgal Foundation. Some of the, I have mentioned only very few here. We have students from Wisconsin, just now, 3 months. Claire James was there for 3 months. She was working on effectiveness of rainwater harvesting functionality in the government schools. Then similarly, Nicole, and basically the idea here is that we are invite students to come and do internships, spend time. And it's not, we are not, yes, they're mostly working in research, but they will spend a lot of time in the villages, working with the communities to understand the situation and create their, and people, generally we tell the students they're open to develop their models. We don't want to strip them into what they can, but what is that they want to do? It's not what we would like them to do, because that brings a different perspective. If we are telling you what you should do, then it's only in a very limited way we are telling you. But if the students come up with a paper, students come up with an idea, that makes it more effective for us as when it comes to the and I also want to mention is our academic relations and collaboration is being handled by Ms. Jane Shakowski. Actually, she should be the one here today, but unfortunately, she was not available. I would like her to be here today, but I think she's available online, and she can. If I will take your contacts, but I can connect you with Jane to continue further with the students and any academic relations. Non-academic relations, I think a lot of times coming up, we talked quite a bit about white papers and WASH, and these are some of the things that we have been able to do and will continue to as we go forward. You can see a lot of these things, the government of India, different governments, to bring the policy papers to their level, to how they can change the policy or review the policy so that it's more impact driven from the grassroots. Key takeaways from our discussions, we have a robust research on the ground. Research methodology requires scientific insights, of course, it's very well known. Collaborations are extremely important. We constantly look out for new ideas, as I just mentioned. We want you to look out. You have an idea, send it to us. My cards are back there on the counter with few books and some of the information about the foundation. Please take and get in touch with me, or feel free to write to SMSF or directly to the people. The emails will go directly to those people. And you are interested in open to partnerships, collaborations, mentors. There's, of course, please visit the dialogues that we have at the foundation, as well as if anybody's interested in donations, I am always open to that. I always welcome that, I say. So. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Thanks for inviting me once again. My email ID is here as well as I have kept my cards there. Please reach out to me, and I'll connect you with the right people to continue this discussion. And I look forward to working with UW-Madison and with the Center for South Asia to build more partnerships and bring. We have just want to mention we have partnerships with various other universities in the U.S. and some of them are displayed here. We have partnership with Iowa State University, University of Iowa, because we are based in Des Moines. That's why. And you know, they are able to, from the agriculture perspective and from water perspective, they're able to bring a lot of help to us over the years. Similarly, at Georgetown and Cornell and Columbia, so we have all these students who go to India for internships at different times of the year. So thank you once again, and I'll leave it for question and answers.